Having us. My name is Jesse Kachapis. I'm an SE at Druva. I've been an SE in kind of the enterprise backup space now for 17 years, so sort of a career SE in this space. What we're going to focus on today is the Druva Cloud platform, right? Data protection platform, and hopefully have some good conversations from you guys and questions around it. So let's just jump right into it. So, kind of the value message of Druva, right? We are a cloud-first company, so we are, we'd say, as a service, right? So we're a SaaS model, pure consumption-based solution. We run our solution in the cloud. Customers that move to us are, customers that are looking to get out of kind of hosting the backup and recovery infrastructure on premise, and they want to move to a cloud-based service. So, the problem that we're typically solving, right, is the legacy backup problem, right? If you look at the market itself and the high percentage of the infrastructure that's out there, it's very similar, right? You have your backup servers, your media servers, any kind of commodity storage or tape, wherever you're storing those backups to, and then typically moving those backups physically, offsite using a courier service and storing it for a long time. With the introduction of dedupe disk or deduplication within the backup software, right, the ability to store more backups on disk was introduced and allowed you to replicate that data offsite, right? And now you can move data your backups around a little bit easier. Got away from tape from a operational backup standpoint, and able to leverage disk for operational backup and recovery. And then kind of the latest piece of all this is all the vendors introducing integration with cloud, right? Or having a plug-in to leverage cloud storage as a tier for the backup application, right? To use it S3 or Azure, and that's kind of where we come in, right? So a lot of the vendors in the industry, right, they have clouds plastered across across websites and integration with cloud. And the question really is, like, what does that actually mean? What does cloud mean to you? To us, it's a business model, right, versus an actual technology. It's a delivery model, and that's kind of how we separate ourselves in this industry today. So, kind of from an overview standpoint, from an architecture standpoint, it's pretty straightforward. On the left-hand side, you have the customer, right? All their data sources, all the data sources that we support. So, VMware infrastructures, physical servers, SQL databases, NAS filers, and then we have what we call our cloud cache, which is an optional on-premise appliance. So customers want to keep 30 days of backups local at any given site. They can deploy a commodity piece of hardware and keep the backups local. But then the endpoint for all that is our cloud platform in AWS. So we designed our software to run within Amazon. We leverage Amazon technologies. It also gives us a global footprint to be where our customers are. So we run in 12 or 13 data centers globally today. So if a customer has offices in Germany, we can spin up the German data center and we can allow them to use that. Customers love it because, again, they can manage everything through a single portal and then store the data where they need to be. Instead of building our own data centers, we partnered with Amazon earlier on, and it's paid off so far in the long run. And then from that repository in the cloud, that control plane in the cloud, we're offering additional service on top of that. So things like DR for VMware workloads. So we have our customers that use AWS today in different capacities, but if they have a VPC, we can literally plug and play VMware backups, convert them to AMIs, and the customer can spin them up in their VPC. Very, very simple to configure and deploy and use. So we see a lot of use cases around DR for remote sites and things like test dev. We're seeing a lot of customers adopt it for that. And then, the cloud's all about availability, right? So once that data is up there, we're storing it in triplicate, right? It's highly secure. We pass all the audits from a security standpoint. But now it's about, getting the data back. And, the idea from an availability standpoint is you can restore the data anywhere, right? I mean, it's just a matter of, putting our software somewhere as a target and sending it right back down. So kind of, and we deliver this as a pure SaaS model, right? So we really have like one SKU for all of this, and we'll go into actually how that actually works in a little while here. And then with the cloud cache, what we're seeing nowadays is customers actually deploying cloud cache earlier on, and then actually getting rid of it and just repurposing the hardware, because they can invest in bandwidth now, right? In bandwidth a lot easier than hardware. What's core to our customers, a lot of them now, is just they're reducing infrastructure. And that's really their goal, right? And that's why they're leveraging the cloud, is they want to kind of get away from deploying more and more hardware on premise, and so we see a lot of that actually now, where they're invested in the network. So, the whole idea here, replacing the stream of, tapes, disk, couriers for tapes for long-term retention, right? Storing that stuff off-site, and we're doing it in one single stream, right? So the software itself, from a technology standpoint, we employ a very powerful global source-side deduplication engine, right? We do an ever incremental backup. It's all containerized to the customer, right? So we basically look at all their data as part of the backup process, and we just, transfer and store unique blocks of data in the cloud, and then maintain those backup copies according to whatever retention policies the customer has set. So that really reduces the amount of data that's being transferred, right, across the entire environment, and also being stored, which is how we actually charge for the solution. So we charge this for the solution based on the post globally deduped storage usage. So it's a very predictable model, and it's very simple, and the customers seem to like it very much. So backup to the cloud, right? Local data sources, endpoints, branch office, data centers. So really wherever data lives within that infrastructure, and then cloud data sources. So it's a growing market, right? A lot of our customers are moving workloads to EC2 to Azure servers, and you still need to back up that data, right? It doesn't change the fact that just because of where it's being hosted doesn't change the fact that it falls outside of your normal data protection policies. So being a cloud-based solution, it's very simple for our customers to leverage us for cloud workloads, right? It's simply just installing software on those instances, configuring your backups, and letting them run. With the technology on the source side, global dedupe and everything else, we can reduce the overhead to actually do all this, right? So customers are really enjoying that.
Just to go back. By the way, let me just introduce myself. I'm Ramanan, Director of Product Management, manage this product as well. So one very, very interesting thing that we hear from customers when we present this is that we are now probably the only solution in the industry that can actually capture all of the enterprise data, including endpoint data as well as server data, right? Both structured, unstructured, across all the data sources, whether the data is residing in endpoints, data centers, or in the cloud. And just being able to view and manage all of that with a single pane of glass. And CIOs just get very excited that now we're creating this one single data lake in the cloud, which now they can actually get a lot of value from that data. So there's a lot of potential to extract value from that data in terms of insights and so on. So
that's a great point. So, being able just to offer a licensable feature for kind of almost a new product based off their existing data, it's really powerful. Things like indexing of the data, search, right? I mean, all it is for us is enabling it. All it is for the customer is saying, okay, we want to use this service and turning it on versus deploying infrastructure to do it. So, data management as a service. So, when we're in this space, the idea of, cloud washing, right? Attaching cloud to anything and saying now it's a cloud solution. That's kind of what we go up against almost on a daily basis and really separating ourselves in this market. And so what we kind of say sometimes is that putting a VCR in the cloud didn't give you Netflix, right? I mean, Netflix was a purpose-built media content delivery service, right? It's always on, it works great. You couldn't have done it before really web scale existed, right? They didn't just take analog technology and throw it up there. So, and that's kind of goes to where we started, right? When we developed the solution, the engineers, they built in Amazon. So we leverage AWS technologies, right? We leverage Dynamo database for our dedupe and our metadata engine, right? The benefit being highly resilient, almost infinitely scalable from a performance standpoint, capacity standpoint, for dedupe and metadata management. That's a major pain point in the enterprise backup space, right? So if you look at any of the deduplication appliances or dedupe softwares, they can scale so large before you have to kind of restart over or create backup pools or rip and replace. So it's a major pain point in this space. We think we've solved that in the cloud, right? Being able to do this within a single within a single pool. And then building the resiliency and the redundancy into the platform, right? Leveraging object storage, right? Data availability zones, 3 copies of the data automatically. Removing this whole idea of, backup to one, replicate to the other, or creates 2 copies, and then third to create your offline copy, your tertiary copy. Within the platform itself, we're creating those copies, instantly, and then we're doing within the software constant error checking and hash checking and everything else to make sure that the data is good, right? We're a backup platform, so we got to make sure that data is good. So when the customer goes and restores it, it's there. And so, designing a solution like that, at web scale just solves a lot of the pain points within the backup industry, backup solutions.
Sorry, just one more thing, right? So this is a very, very powerful concept, and I just wanted to reemphasize a little bit, right? Because This also, we think, is our core differentiation than any other vendor out there, right? So typically, most vendors, they start off with an on-premise solution, take the software, and host it in the cloud. So think, as a customer, now I'm hosting it, I need a cluster, I set up a cluster. Now I need to expand, I need to scale. What do? I have to add a new cluster. Who adds it, right? So now I need a cloud operations team. What about patches, upgrades, right? So it really leads to a lot of complications when you host software in the cloud. And this is where all of the complexity is managed by Druva, right? So we know how to manage cloud. And this is actually a cloud-based file system that we've built, right? It actually natively uses all the goodness, right? All the great services of the cloud, scalable databases, S3, object storage, cold storage, and being able to auto-tier, auto-manage. So all of that. And ultimately, the experience to the customer is just like a utility, right? You turn on the switch, protects, and they don't have to worry about anything. All they care about is how much am I consuming, and that's what I pay for. So very, very powerful concept, and something that absolutely resonates in the market.
So from a data architecture standpoint, kind of mentioned it earlier, but source-side global dedupe, really, it's a big part of the technology. It's the enabler for us to be able to do a lot of the things that we do, right? And the idea is that we can move data incredibly efficiently. We can store it incredibly efficiently and very securely. So we've employed, as far as I'm concerned, from really great technology in the on the dedupe side of it. I mean, to the point where I've worked for EMC and Commvault and a lot of other backup software companies. The compression, the optimization that we're seeing with our customers is I find almost mind blowing that we're doing so well. And it kind of goes to the whole idea of web scale, right? I mean, this idea that not having to segregate the data out or send it to different locations and have all these pools, really having this single namespace to dedupe against at the scale that we can do it. And then again, the architecture itself. It's just the idea that we didn't build our own data set, our own database. We didn't build our own data centers, right? We were leveraging these proven technologies. We're six years into it that are have proven to do exactly what we needed to do. And that just, again, opens up the door for us to add so many more features on top of this stuff. As an SE, I work with customers all the time, and I have a list of things that a customer would recommend that they would like to see in the product, and we're able to turn it around pretty quickly. Because if that customer wants it, we're going to be able to, think another customer is going to like it right afterwards. So it's kind of exciting. From the storage standpoint, right? We talk to a lot of legacy customers, and sometimes it's the education around just getting away from the old way of doing backups, right? This idea that you're doing periodic full backups every so often, or synthetic full backups, or reverse incrementals, or whatever they are, right? We are a pure, true incremental forever solution, right? Again, technology on the back end that allows us to manage the index and everything at web scale allows us to do this, right? We don't have those, we don't have to rebaseline the data every so often, and then we're able to lay that data down, in the storage and be able to pull it back very quickly. Right? Application support currently, so VMware, Nutanix, Microsoft. So agentless on the VMware side, we're using a virtual proxy. Customer deploys the proxy, and then we register it against vCenter or standalone host, auto discover all the virtual machines. We can put SLAs and auto configuration as far as the backups go. Hyper-V support's coming out in October, so the same levels of integration is going to occur there. On the Nutanix side, we're doing on AHV, we're doing guest level backups. Integration with AHV at the host level is coming soon as well. And then Cloud DR for VMware, which I mentioned earlier. Again, customers leveraging AWS, we can automate DR in the cloud and conversion of those virtual machine images into AMIs that can be instantly available.
Is that building a VPC, or is that just converting to a simple EC2 instance?
The customer will have the VPC. We'll do everything. We'll do the export and the conversion to the AMI automatically within what we call a DR policy. So they create a trust relationship between their VPC and the Phoenix Cloud, and it's a one-way out. And
does that include virtual machines that have more than one network adapter?
Good question for.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
On the physical side, so a bunch of Linux OSs, CentOS, Ubuntu, SLES,
most of the
Red Hat, most of the Linux side, and then the Windows side. On the database, we have a Microsoft SQL plugin. It's built into the Phoenix agent. So if we find that there's a SQL instance on the machine, we automatically just enable it. We can do transaction log backups, point in time recovery around that. And Oracle is coming out late this year, so we'll have some integration around Oracle backups. Today, a lot of customers just do dumps, and we sweep the dumps still. On the NAS side, we're doing a lot of engineering work. So we're doing, it's a large data set, large unstructured data set. So we kind of want to get our hand, get that into our cloud. So we've built some technology around protecting those workloads. A lot of it's just around the efficiency, right? The optimization piece of it, right? Being able to scan really fast, being able to identify redundant data, and being able to transmit unique data, right? So we've put in some what we're calling smart scans, so you can adjust the way that the actual scan can occur. We've eliminated, we're not doing NDMP, we're doing proxy based, but the idea here is that we can do, almost infinite streams. You can deploy as many proxies as you want. We're never going to move the same block of data twice. And then you can do smart scans on top of that for extremely large data sets.
Yeah, and I think the big advantage here is, this was again from after a lot of polling with the market, right? And the fact that we are able to back up the data in its native format, again, unlocks a lot. The first proposition that I told you about, where now it's searchable, indexable, and you can analyze, and all the e-discovery governance, all of those workflows are easily built on top of that.
Okay, so your proxy logs into the NAS as a SMB client?
Mm-hmm. That is correct, yes. And just to optimize on the scan, because typically large environments are large, when we have to deal with like multi-petabyte kind of environments.
The problem with large file systems is more than backing the data up, is identifying the data that needs to be backed up.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Walking the file system takes forever.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's where that's the one we were talking about, what we call smart scan. So essentially, it has multiple elements, right? So one is we have a scale-out agent. So essentially, you should be able to break down the data, the entire data pool into multiple, so that you can have parallel agents backing up. Second is we are also introducing certain elements where we are trying to understand, as he rightly pointed out, right? What is the data that needs to be backed up? So now we have to go and figure out what is the data that's likely to have changed. So there are some conditions that we operate on. Again, and it's a learning algorithm as well, where we say, hey, for example, there's a part of the file system that's stale and it hasn't changed in a very, very long time. So what's the likelihood that it would have changed, right? And then being able to intelligently figure out if...
Oh, I'm not so happy with that.
Okay.
If you say, this branch of the file system hasn't changed in 6 months, in 11 months, because that's where we do the end of year processing. Yeah. And you have to come back and scan that. The past performance is not any indication of future returns.
No, absolutely. So the question is how frequent you want to scan certain parts of the file system, right? So there are warmer parts of the file system that we scan more frequently.
My SLA with my users is that every piece of data that at 6 p.m. tonight was different than 6 p.m. last night will by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning be backed up. And so that means that that if you're relying on a file system scan, you need to scan the whole file system every night for me to make that SLA. Now, do you take advantage of any of the proprietary APIs like the NTFS journal that will tell you which files changed without having to do the scan?
So we are looking at a few of those as well. But right now, I think based on the data set that we've seen, this is also something that we have seen customers being a little comfortable with, but so we're looking at those as well.
Because NetApp and EMC have APIs like that, for their systems. We can just say, well, there's an API where you can say, tell me the files that changed, rather than having to walk the file system.
Yeah.
How about like applications like Exchange? And do you have users like to be able to say, I need that email from yesterday?
Single item recovery?
Yeah.
So we don't have an Exchange agent today. So what we see is a lot of the customers move to Office 365, and we have a backup solution for Office 365.
What about SQL Server and SharePoint? Can you do single item recovery out of those?
Yes.
Okay.
SQL Server, yes. SharePoint again, no. So we don't have it.
Okay.
And what about
Go ahead.
I was to say, what about like databases like Postgres and all the Linux?
Looks like you're going to back up the database file, but you're not.
Yeah, we support pre and post scripting within the backup policy, so we can call a script for pre-backup and then do a dump and back it up. We're not positioning
ourselves. You're not going to be able to like back up like cache or something like Epic, like.
We're not, I don't think we're generally going after that market, right? I mean, I think what we're doing, we're not looking at ourselves as a rip and replace for everything. We're looking at our use cases, right? I mean, we have customers with 150 remote sites and with very little IT at those remote sites, and it's very expensive for them to back up all that data before and actually enforce policy. Whereas now it's completely automated through a single product, and they can actually do chargeback against it, and they can literally log into the console and see where they stand on a daily basis. So we know what we do really well, and so we're going in as an additional tool to a customer's environment. Right? We don't want to back up their SIP. Right? This is not what the market where we're going up. They're already doing it, and they're doing it today. And whether they're happy with it or not, they're kind of stuck with what they have. But even Exchange is a great example. Is that a lot of our customers are going to Exchange Online, so we didn't want to develop going backwards. Right? We're kind of looking forward at this point. So we developed the solution from the cloud to cloud standpoint, and SharePoint Online and OneDrive and so on.
So are you doing log truncation via VSS, or do I have to tell my Exchange server to run circular logs?
So we don't have the Exchange agent, right? So if you're doing it at the
Yeah, but that's just a VSS provider function. That there's two levels of VSS provider. There's a partial provider and there's a full provider, and a full provider will do log truncation for applications like Exchange.
Right. Yeah, we don't have an Exchange agent, and also we're not backing up Exchange databases. So our customers aren't using us to back up Exchange.
Okay, so you're just not recommending. You're just not in the Exchange backup business.
Correct.
That is
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will that come? I mean, obviously, Exchange got us left, right? It's hopefully on premises, and this comes from a guy who loved Exchange for a long time. Dies a quick death. Are you eventually planning to add that at all? To encompass more enterprise-type use cases, or is that not really where you're headed?
I mean, we have it on our list. Let me put it that way. But
it's on a list.
It's a priority.
Okay, we're never going to do this list.
But I think so far, at least, so as he said, right, so we are targeting a certain market, right? And a lot of them are moving more towards Office 365. So that's what we see. It's definitely on our priority list. Probably something we'll
No one's banging our door down for a new Exchange backup solution,
No.
So it's they got it. It works.
So no group buys?
What's that?
No group buys?
Let us know. Can you back up my S400?
We're coming up with Lotus Notes first. Yeah. So this is just
I still have this one NetWare file server I need to back up.
Awesome. Talk to him. So this is a Phoenix architecture slide. I don't know, Ram, you want to talk to it? Just kind of, it's an overview. I can't really see it that well.
Sure, I can.
Yeah. Move over here.
Sure, just put everything together, right? So as we said, so today we're fully architected in the cloud. It's basically a file system in the cloud, right? So that's the way to think about it. So it's got its own metadata and configuration isolated, and then our storage layer uses S3 and Glacier, and the data is auto-tiered as well. So which means we keep the right kind of data in the right data tier or the storage tier. So older data goes to cold and warmer data stays in S3. And we keep our metadata separate as well. So that way, that gives us the ability to actually assemble and serve the data in any format, right? Like even as a file system or a direct download or serve it for other applications and so on. So that gives a lot of flexibility, as he pointed out. Or maybe I'll look at the laptop here. So the other thing is the DR piece, right? So as we said, we orchestrate DR into the customer VPC. So essentially, this is already part of the customer account. And all it does is we have a proxy that sits here, gives us permission to talk to our cloud. And essentially, after every backup, we orchestrate a conversion to an AMI. And it's incremental updated. And it sits in the customer VPC ready for boot up. So all the customer has to do, and it also allows unlimited tests and of course failover and so on.
Can that be in a different region?
Potentially, yes. So and then the other idea is, ultimately at the time of disaster, you just have to log into Phoenix, click failover, and you pre-create a DR plan. And what that does is pretty much says what VMs and how often should they be converted, and so on. So this really definitely serves a spectrum of the market that doesn't require like real-time DR or an application-based DR, but something that's good enough with an RPO as good as the backup RPO.
little bit about encryption and how you save that data? Do you encrypt in motion? Do you encrypt in rest?
Sure. Yeah,
Can you touch
absolutely.
around keys?
Absolutely. So data is encrypted in motion and at rest. So it's AES 256 at rest, and we use TLS 1.2 in transit as well. So we use what's called envelope encryption. I think there's another term for it, right? Envelope encryption is kind of the term there. Idea here is customer has a key, and we encrypt on top of that key. So we encrypt that key. So what that provides an ability is we have absolutely zero access to that data, right? So even if we get subpoenaed by NSA or anybody, we just have no way to access the data or provide the data. And so that's pretty much how the storage encryption is.
But without the cloud cache component, because you said most people are getting rid of that,
Yep.
the encryption and the deduplication is handled by the proxies?
That is
you
correct.
deploy?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
And they can
absolutely
scale, like there could be more than one. There could be
Absolutely, yes.
So the data is DB before it goes across the wire.
That's correct. Yes, it's at the source, and even this cloud cache is an optional component, right? So it's typically used by customers where there's a very low bandwidth and they want a staging area to back up to the cloud, or they want faster restores.
quicker restore,
Exactly,
yeah.
right? Like faster restore.
Data, basically.
Exactly. So and it can be selective. They can choose certain set of VMs or tier one applications to go to cloud cache and certain direct to the cloud. It gives a lot of flexibility in the hardware, the specs, the sizing of the hardware, and so on. And eventually,
Is that an appliance, the cloud cache? Like, is that something you guys sell? as an
so we don't
appliance,
sell
or
the appliance.
software
It's a software we sell, and it's a commodity hardware. We define specs for the customer and so on. And it also we're also coming up with a lot of other capabilities around instant boot capabilities and so on, where you have instant recovery.
That's one of the beauties of the solution is that there is no dedicated hardware appliance. So when the customer wants to move directly to cloud, they can just turn it off and actually repurpose that hardware for whatever they need to use. It's just commodity hardware.
How are you licensed? I mean, maybe you mentioned this, but how are you licensed?
Yeah. Sure. So we are licensed by the amount of data that's stored in the cloud post deduplication, post compression, right?
Right.
So pretty
Okay.
much if I store, and a lot of times, over a long retention period, let's say I back up like 100 terabytes of source, and over a 1-year retention or 3-year retention, we almost end up, having a much more efficient data storage footprint in the cloud. A lot of times even less than the original source, and we just charge them on a per month basis on how much it's stored in the cloud.
We have customers with 150 terabytes of front end spread across 110 remote sites, and they're storing 70 terabytes in the cloud 2 years into a 7-year retention and keeping monthlies for 3 years. So it's pretty impressive in the sense that we're not penalizing them for their redundant data on the front end, right? There's no additional licensing. We're just charging them based on what they consume, and that's it. And the way that we sell the licensing is what we do is you buy capacity, we convert it to what we call credits, and then you own those credits until you use them. So you don't lose anything you don't use. So if a customer bought 100 terabytes of credits for this year and they only use 50 roll over to next year. So they can't overbuy anything. So we typically
You could end up with enough credits for 20 years.
Well, you could, yeah.
But that would imply
That's a good sales guy,
foolishness
yeah.
and urgency.
It doesn't happen.
No charge then for egress
Nope.
from Druva.
Nothing.
Even if you bring it back to your data
But
center.
there's from Amazon.
It's all built in. What's
I'm
that?
sorry?
There's from Amazon, right? You're going to pay the egress.
It's all under our cost.
It's all we absorb the cost.
So
we have
your cost includes
Everything.
Everything.
That is correct.
As a service.
Interesting.
It's completely as a service, and it's only the only metric that people
everybody does
worry
it
about.
differently, and I did not catch that. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, for a customer, other than if they have to set up a VPC in Amazon, they don't even know it's Amazon. It's a Druva service, right? So the backend could be Amazon, could be